All right, quad witching. Fun, fun, fun. It's been 3 months since our last quad witch. Funny how that works. They come every 3 months.
Seems like it was only yesterday.
It's interesting. I will start today's class by saying this. I was one of those people, and some of you are like this, and some of you are the opposite, but it tends to be a polarizing question. I was one of those people that as soon as I was trading futures, I started trading futures in 1993. And as soon as I started doing it and I understood rollover and witching, events, which took me a while. I didn't understand them for several years. It was probably 97, 98 by the time I really had a clue what that meant. It seemed really, the futures business loves to have crazy terms, backward tardation, contango, they love to make up names for shit. So it's confusing. Anyway, I remember once I understood that, to me, it was like a natural thing to do to trade this because there's so much volatility. And, my thing is volatility. I love to play when it's moving. And, you're right or wrong fairly quickly. And, it works or it doesn't. Good trades work right away. So, but it's the conventional wisdom is always sit on the sidelines during quad witching because it's too crazy to trade. And indicators don't work. Well, of course, indicators don't work because it's a environment of changing conditions, and indicators never work when conditions are changing. They only work in a predictable situation like trending markets or something. But this kind of volatility, all you can do is respect the momentum. And I've been a broken record about this all week. The momentum is king here. Yes, artifacts and price levels that have been of interest in the past are important to be aware of, but momentum can plow right over those when we're having the kind of volatility we're having. And I'm sure you've all seen that. And so, your first priority has to always be which direction are we going and with how much momentum? That always has to be the first question you ask yourself. Because, look, to make money in the market, you have to get the direction right. That's all that matters. If I'm long and it's going down, I'm wrong. If I'm long and it's going up, I'm right. It's literally that simple, and vice versa. So volatility, as long as you respect momentum, is your friend. If you try to think in terms of price levels, or artifacts that, may or may not be in play right now, the odds of those being effective go down when it's this volatile. And, because there's more activity, it makes sense. So be careful getting too married to structural levels or, past levels of interest. Zero prints might look at the zero and single print situation. I mean, for example, look at YM. That's the most fun one. I mean, there's single prints everywhere. Below us, above us, there's a lot more above us. And this is true in all the indexes right now. So, those are fun. And when we get going in the direction of them, by all means, they're relevant. Look at ES. Again, they're everywhere. And there's also a poor week low down here and one up here. So there's plenty of artifacts to choose from. But, this is really about momentum. You have to respect that. If you don't, you're going to get run over sooner or later. And if you do respect the momentum, it gives you a lot of trading opportunities because you really only have two choices. You're either joining momentum or you're waiting for it to subside and you're fading it. And that's pretty much all I do, and all the different setups we talk about and all the different approaches to it. That's really the crux of what I do. Which way are we going with how much momentum? And is that momentum joinable? Or if not, I'll look to fade it or I'll look to do nothing. And I use a statistical evaluation of the range using LRCs, linear regression. And that gives me a sense of, how far have we gone in the short term? And so it's effective. We tend to overshoot LRC extremes like we did here and here because they're not the high and low of the range. They're some of the squares, regression of the range. So frequently you overshoot it, and those are the places to play. That I just had a long down there that was a wicked good long and was fading short earlier. If you look the other end of the range, we had a similar situation right there. So, respect the momentum, respect the short-term statistical ranges, the extremes of the volume, which is what's over here on my 1/22 views. These are the extremes of the VWAP, standard deviations 1 through 4 away from the VWAP. And that's useful for judging extremes. Again, we were way down there. We were almost SD4 when this event occurred. So getting long there, statistically, number one, it'll be really obvious if it's not going to work. It'll keep going down hard. If it's going to work, it'll tend to work really fast, like it did right there. And just boom, you're instantly in profit. You get a really nice wick right there, right at the extreme. So, that kind of sums up what I do. Most of you know this already, but I'm just for guests and just for repetition, I'm just kind of reviewing it. And so to put that into the context of quad witch real quick, and then I'll get to comments and questions. The quad witch is basically options on futures. And equity options are all expiring today. That's why it's quad witch. So there's all these different instruments, and they're all derivatives, which means they're all highly leveraged. And most of them are derivatives of the same thing, but it's important to understand they're derivatives of the same thing over different time frames. And so as those options expire, the market gets a little bit price discovery crazy. And it's also interesting to note that some of them are pegged on the opening price, the cash opening price of the S&P 500, the SPX, right? Some of them are based on the close. Some of them settle during the day. And so depending on what kind of options we're talking about and whether they're options on equities or futures or whatever, it creates a very, very dynamic environment. And again, in a dynamic environment, the last thing you want to do is lean on price levels because they're meaningless. It's the momentum that matters. And if you happen to have a coincidence of momentum and a significant price level artifact, by all means, that's important. But you have to change your priorities around. Your priority cannot be on the price artifacts because the momentum will just run them over. And if you haven't been paying attention this week, you didn't notice that. But if you were paying attention this week, that happened over and over and over again. Even if it's just something as simple as, taking out a round number like 3,900 or 3,850. We overshoot those every time we take them out, but often once we get past overshooting them, like let's say we were trading, for example, to 3,800, and it might trade down to 3,992 or but it's clear it's getting bought in that area, and then you get just a slingshot back the other way. And so those are very tradable events. Here's an example of one of those right there. Respect the momentum. I can't emphasize that enough. The momentum is your friend. If you're going with it, it's definitely your friend. And when it exhausts at an interesting spot, that creates a really asymmetric opportunity to go the other way, just because, momentum tends to ebb and flow. And it just, the exception to that is a short squeeze, where it just keeps going one way. But, there tends to be a little bit of energy ebbing and flowing. Like right now, look at all this absorption right here at 75 NES and huge chunk of volume there. The VWAP's up there, so we're still a little below the Globex value, but we're trading right on the bottom of the value area, probably seeing some responsive selling right there. And you can see, look at the absorption here. So, that's the kind of things you're looking for. Where does the momentum stop, and how does it interact with the liquidity? Like right here, this liquidity that was sitting there on the way up is getting traded. It all traded, and you can see it in the traded volume right there. So if you look at a footprint, you can kind of get a sense of what's happening. Look at that absorption, 1,700. It's massive compared to the rest of the session. In fact, now it's 2,100. It's huge. And so, that's important. It may not be, the ceiling here. This could, whoever's absorbing all the buyers here could stop and we could pop up into here really quickly. So, it's not necessarily a place to buy or sell, but it's definitely noteworthy. And, if we were trending down, that would be a really, really good spot to be looking to get short again. And as I said earlier, there was some really good shorts and some good longs this morning. We've had both, longs at the extremes and shorts going with the momentum on the way down. So at this point, it's really just about, waiting for the next momentum event to play. And guess what? That's the open. So let me segue really quickly to basically I trade 3 different setups at the open, and we'll go through this as we do it. The session will go till the bottom of the first hour. So the initial balance. I trade the open 5, the first 5 minutes, which is purely a momentum trade. I either join it or I don't trade. We'll go through that when that comes up. Then at 15 minutes in, I look at the equities internals and what's going on in the thing that we are derived from. In other words, the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100 or whatever index you're trading. And at that point, the 15-minute break is a really good trade. Yesterday, we had a perfect 15-minute break long. So basically, you're just looking at the 15-minute opening range. This is it right here. And whichever way we break, there's 87% chance you can make some money just by joining that. And this was a really good example. The top of the range was there, and it went all the way up there. And so really nice long break. And we'll talk about that as it's happening this morning as well. And then, I trade less aggressively around the B to A setup for, B going A period transitioning into B period, and the bottom of B period for the initial balance. I look at the statistics for the initial balance breaks and the 8 overnight and all that. I use it as context. However, I don't trade off of that. If my momentum rules and the other things that I already covered are in play, then those will be additional reasons why I like or don't like the trade. But I don't make decisions based on things like unfinished business or any of that stuff. It adds or subtracts from the quality of what I'm seeing in the momentum. All right, so we just had a big burst of energy here. Again, remember, some options are going to be expiring pegged on the opening price. So that price is important. Does anybody know what the max pain number is today? I'm curious. Max pain is just where the most people in options will lose money. So it's an interesting statistic to keep an eye on, or interesting metric, because often it trades there because the market, conspires to take the most money from the most people. I have my tapes back up. Yes, I've mentioned that in a couple of sessions this week. I'm only trading MNQ right now. That is the only thing I'm trading, and I'm trading it very aggressively. So it's on my dome, and I'm running 2 tapes of the NQ just to compare the NQ, MNQ energy. This first one is everything, so I'm seeing the momentum on it. The one on the left, I'm just filtering for 5 or more so I can see where the blocks are going off. And it's just like I've used it before. But so I also mentioned in previous sessions this week, I have a little contest going with Video Game Guy. I'm trying to get as good at MAE as he is. And this is really valuable information to get really precise entries and exits in MNQ particularly, because I don't have a dome of it up. That's why I've got the tapes for it. But as I mentioned, I had those, last year. I took them off when I was trading other instruments, and we were relatively not volatile. We were relatively range bound for a few months, and then the volatility picked up, and that's where those are valuable for me with trading MNQ or NQ. So that is the answer to your question, Sven. Where's Tom? Yeah, JVC, real quickly, see if you can find the max pain. It's Googleable. I'm just curious.
Absolutely. I figured for sure someone else would beat me to it. I'll do it.
Yeah, nobody's posted it. Everyone's asking for Tom to do it because he's our options guy.
Lazy sods.
Lazy people. Yeah, Amy's not here either. Amy usually has it as well.
Here it is.
Okay.
Oh, of course, they don't just make it like the thing you land at when you go to the page. You got to hunt for it.
Yeah, you got to look.
Oh, come on. Where are you? You can't just stick it on the page, front and center. Of
course not, because then you won't click.
Yeah, what's wrong with you people? Come on. Here we go. We want a SPY, I'm assuming.
Yeah, SPY or SPX. It'll be roughly the same.
Okay. And come on, load.
For those that don't know, SPY is an ETF of the S&P 500. So it's basically pegged to the cash. It has no premium. Unlike the futures, which have premium because they're futures.
Max pain 3960.
3960, and we're 3977, so we're right there. Okay, so
surprise.
Yeah, look at all this volume right now pre-market. This is very unusual, but the total volume is relatively, well, it's higher than normal, but it's relatively low. This week the volume's been really high. We had a couple of days where Wednesday the volume was at like 700,000 at the open, which is really decent volume. But here we can just see a lot of energy both ways. The book is still thin, so we are going to get a lot of movement. You're going to see a lot of sweeps both ways. So anyway, the open is interesting because of that pegging. That's one reason that the quad witch open is particularly tradable. And again, remember, the only trade that I do at the open is my open 5 trade, which is question, is there momentum? Yes or no? If there is it one way or is it both ways? If it's one way, join it. That is the trade, and I will typically join it at the market. Hang on a second. I got to turn this off. So that's my open 5 trade. We'll get it or we won't. And, and once I get in, I just try to protect whatever profit I have and let it rock and roll. I don't really have a preconceived notion about where it's going. The beauty of the open 5 trade is sometimes you can catch an opening drive where we just go one way all day and, you're in it right away, which is cool. But that doesn't happen that often. Opening drives are relatively rare. We're not that well correlated. NQ has been remarkably strong the last few days. I've noticed this. It's because of tech. If you look at, here's the heat map from yesterday at the close, and, the Russell's still getting beat up because it's got a lot of finance in it. But the rest of the indexes were really strong because of tech. So keep an eye on the NASDAQ. I've been scalping long at the lows. Like I said earlier, that low down there was a really great long. So let's see if we get another one. Okay, we are open. We're off. The horses are off. And again, the only thing I'm looking to assess at the immediate open is, are we going one way with momentum? If we are, I look to join it. And right now we're going down. Let's see if it can get to any place meaningful to either join it or fade it. It's right on 0-0 here, which I just never like to play an NQ at 0-0 because that's just not a particularly stable spot. 20 or 92 the other way I like, but let's see if we get to 20. If this is a shortable fade here, might be. Yeah, this could be an interesting short up here, but I for some reason I like NQ long better today. So let's see how it deals with 20, which is typically a spot it likes to inflect on. It's not really going one way or the other here. We're kind of going back and forth, although now we have a little bit of an up bias as opposed to a little bit of a down bias we had a minute ago. So again, this is a momentum trade in one direction, and I'm really not getting the sense of us going one direction here, at least not yet. I usually give this trade 4 or 5 minutes to play out, and I'll either trade it or not. And this looks like it could be one of the days that I don't trade it. But let's see. This setup, by the way, the open 5 momentum is a really good trade, typically 3 days a week. If you go back and look at the first 5 minutes of each day, typically at least 3 days a week, sometimes more, it will just kind of get going one way and have enough momentum that it's joinable. So let's keep an eye on this. It's building a big high volume node here, so we could really go either way from there pretty hard. And again, I don't look at structure or the internals or anything at this point because they're not relevant to me yet. This is just about, are we going one way or the other? Yeah, it traded the 20 area, but it didn't pull back much. I kind of could make an argument for a long here, but I could also make an argument for a short. So for that reason, again, I'm going to be very cautious here and sit on my hands. Again, particularly because it's quad witch. On other days, I might be a little more aggressive shorting this up here. It looks like it's getting bought, though. And then we're not really, the really tight range in ES, we're not that well correlated. NQ is at the high, YM's at the low, RTY's at the low. So I think this is one of those days I want to wait and see the internals before I get too crazy aggressive here. But I'm starting to think we've got a good long setup. Let's see if RTY and YM can hold their low. This could be an NQ long again, which is basically what happened yesterday. Let me just go back, and while we're waiting for something to happen here, this was a good example of how, the opening 5 minutes, if nothing's happening, you just kind of sit in your hands, but sometimes you can patiently wait for a big move like we got there. And then this was Wednesday. And Wednesday was an example of opening 5 long. I mean, we came out of the gate and just ripped up, and all you had to do is join it. And it was really nice. I had a good trade there long on that one. So anyway, yeah, this is still trying to be a long, but it's sweeping back too much for me to want to be long here. And by the way, this is what we're going to do most of this session. Feel free to put questions and comments in. I will get to them in the chat, but basically I'm just going to kind of give you stream of consciousness here. And if I see a setup I like, I'll take it. We are trade copying, so whatever I do is multiplied by 5 right now. So, small amounts add up. So I don't need to be too aggressive on any, in this one account because the other 4 will add it up. Okay, it's trying to hold 20 right here. So I'm going to reset this dome. And let's see if maybe there's a long right here off the VWAP. It's right back in the middle of the range, but it needs to hold 20 for that to be a long. And again, when I say that, that's the range of 20. NQ moves around way too much to just look at 20 itself. Call it 15 to 25 right now. Look at that big sweep down. Nope. And this would be too dangerous to be long, and it's not a good short setup at all. So I still like it long, but it would be really hard to manage risk with this much movement. This is a 10-point sweeping range right now. It would just be too easy to get on the wrong side of that. So while that's happening, we're just about at the end of the open 5. Like I said, I give it 5 or 6 minutes. And if I see a dominant direction, I'll join it. And right now, we're not getting that at all. We're working in range. And whenever we're working the range, the good decision is to give it some time and let it play out a little bit more. So let's have a quick look at the footprint. Big price rejector up there. Price rejector the other way on the pullback, but and this was that big giant delta we saw that ended up being 11,000 contracts. We saw that right before the open, if you were here at that point. So I don't know. This is still not giving me anything exciting to look at, and it's too early to look at the equity internals. We need another 10 minutes or so for that to be relevant. And the reason for that's really simple. The major equities don't always open right at the start of the market, when regular trading opens. Sometimes there's imbalances and they will open slower if something's going on in a big equity instrument. So you just got to give that time to be meaningful. Right at the open, it just hasn't had enough time to be meaningful. Okay, this is getting interesting here. Now we're across the board lows. So could be a short or it could be an interesting long again, like it was in pre-market. So let's watch this. I'm thinking this is an interesting long, but not yet. I'd like to see it around 70. Again, testing this area that we were in the pre-market. And again, I don't want to be short just because we're bouncing too much. You couldn't manage a short here very well unless it gains some more momentum, and that might happen. If you've been to any of my live sessions, often I will join a trade like this and go short toward the ledge break, but I'm much more likely to fade the ledge break and trade back into the range. It's just a style thing. They're both totally legitimate ways of playing the same action, which is the ledge break. You can trade toward it or you can fade it. And because NQ acts like a rubber band so much, when it breaks a ledge, it snaps back so sharply. I like to do fades. But I also do go with it. A couple of days ago, we had that really strong down day, and it was just, every bounce gets short. All right, if this is going to be a short, it's going to do it right here at this area. So I'm going to go ahead and put an order there just for fun. See if that is going to hold. It needs to, it could go a little higher up and still be a short, So I would add to this like right here. And then see, if we can catch a little snap back the other way and pick up some ticks like that. Let's try to protect this. I don't know if I'll be able to protect this, but let's try. Nope. All right. So we got some profits out of that. I was trying to see if I could get a runner, which I didn't, but picked off some points. And again, it might only be 10 or 20 bucks at a time, but times 5, it adds up. I post my P&Ls in the pit all the time. It can be a couple $1,000s a day doing exactly what I'm doing for an hour or two. So I don't like this here anymore. This is volatile both ways. So, I like fading it, but now I want to see the top of the range. I don't want to just try to fade the 20 area. It's going to have to play to 40 or 50 to be fadeable now for me. Just too much movement. Couldn't manage the risk. By fadeable, I mean shorting it up here right now. Don't want to be long because this area is being sold, but I don't want to be short either, just because it could pop through here really aggressively, and then the good short will be up here somewhere. So let's let it do that. You can see, ES has actually strengthened quite a bit. We're right back on the volume. That's the POC, that purple. This is the VWAP for the session. And again, all the other instruments are kind of working back and forth the entire range, and NQ continues to be the strength, which, is undoubtedly tech, but we'll see in a minute here. Okay, can we blow this and maybe fade it short? Let's see. Boy, it doesn't want to get up there, does it? Look at all that selling right there at 30. You can see all those blocks that went off on the bid. Let's see if it can hold that price, because that becomes buying as we get above that price level. So watch that right there. We could get a nice plow through the high here that could set up a short fade. You could try to go long from here inside out, but it's just dangerous because the range is so big. The bottom of the range would be a better place to try that. But, obviously you'd be going the wrong way to get down there. So, okay, here it comes. I think we're going to blow the ledge right now. So let's see if we can fade this. Okay, there's one. There's the other. It's ripping. I could be off sides here, but I think I can still get some points out of it. So let's see. Watching 50. If it can hold 50, it could get going up from there. Okay, that's warning me that we've got some. Okay, let's take one off. Oh, wow. It touched me and I didn't get filled. This is very volatile here, guys. Don't try to do what I'm doing. Whoa, look at that. Geez, nice push up. Definitely caught some shorts up there off sides. I'm going to take profits here fast because this is really volatile. So I'm not going to try to catch a runner. I'm just going to take my profits on the next push down, if I can even get them. Let's see. It's getting bought right where I'm trying to buy it too. I'm trying to cover a short here. There we go. Okay, we got filled. Anyway, this is crazy stuff. I want to go back to the sidelines and let this play out a little bit, because when you can get off sides like that and still get out with money, that's my swarming approach. That's one reason that my win rate's so high, is because I can work my way out of being wrong like that. But one of the mistakes you can make is getting overconfident, doing that, because, I can work my way out of any trade. Yeah, but, having to do that isn't a good thing. So let's see what we get for the 15-minute breaks. You can see the yellow lines on my fast views over here. Those are the 15-minute boundaries. And then the blues, what will become the initial balance. So you'll see that yellow will be fixed once we get to 15 minutes in, which is another 4 minutes. So this isn't a bad time to have a look at the internals, just to see what the equities are doing. Very, very weak open, minus 1,500 on the advanced decline. It was weaker yesterday and it improved all the way to plus 1,500 over the course of the day. You could see this is yesterday, but right now that's pretty weak. And look at the tick. We're pretty much working, from zero down to minus 1,000. So, the equities are negative at the moment. But again, it's way too early to draw too many conclusions about that. If we see what's trading, some of the tech, Google is still pretty strong, Adobe, but there's some weakness as well. Meta's weak today. It was strong. So, this isn't quite as overwhelmingly positive a picture as yesterday for the NQ. So let's keep an eye on it. But again, right here in the middle of this giant range with all this two-directional momentum, I just don't want to stick my neck out. You just saw me do it and get out profitably, but that was as much experience and luck as anything else. That wasn't a particularly good setup. So anyway, let me see comments and questions. Okay. I already have a pretty profitable day from trading the pre-open. So again, if I see a good setup, I'm definitely going to take it, but I'm not inclined to get really, really aggressive here just because this is erratic. All right, see, now we're back at the bottom of the range. So again, it's a potentially interesting long here. But the internals aren't really supportive of that, but look at the buying right there. This is an interesting spot. Could be a long. Let's watch it. I won't trade it, but we'll watch it. So right there where I put my mouse is the spot I'm watching. It's the POC, so obviously it's aggressive, but nope, see, trades away from it. So, that long would be off sides. And then you're seeing these giant sweeps right, down and then right back up. And so again, this is just too erratic to really get too aggressive. Either way, let's have another look at structure, see if that's. Oh, well, we no longer have a price rejector up there. That's interesting. What else is going on here? We're right between the deltas on the pullback, and we're right on minus delta for a period here. So again, this is such a classic example of a quad witch open. It just, crazy energy in both directions. And again, if you get good entries and you can join the momentum, it's definitely tradable, but you have to be nimble and you have to really, be careful not to get too far away because it can really run over. Howdy, Michael. So, we're just about to come up on the 15-minute break. So look where we are. We are right in the middle of the 15-minute range. So this next setup is really simple. Whichever side we break to, you want to go that way. And if you can see a good, spot to lean in the traded volume, that's an even more precise entry. Like right now, can you see an inside out either direction that makes some sense? Yeah, maybe. It's a little hard to get too excited either direction. There's liquidity in both directions. And again, we just looked at the footprint. I don't think it's really decisive either way here. You be at the high, you be at the low. We're heading down. The overnight low has UB as well. So, there's probably a decent argument to the downside, given that the internals are weak as well. But again, look at NQ. It's still, it's right on flat. It's been positive and everything else has been down. So I'm hesitant to short NQ under those conditions. I'm liking the idea of playing it long better, but if we could see the low get taken out and maybe get a cleaner low in ES, that would be a good time maybe to play NQ long. But you can see all three of the others are about to break their low. NQ is a long way from its low, so let's see what happens right here. This could be a good trade either way. Seeing a little bit of absorption there in ES. Tempted to play this long, but I don't like this spot 12, I like 00 and 92 down here. Those I like a lot. I don't like it here. It's just too risky. I could enter long here and then it goes to 92 and then I have to aggressively add to make the trade work when I should have just been more patient and waited for it to come to me. So that's what's going on right now. That's what's in my head. Yes, we have UB in both directions. And it's really hard to gauge this momentum right now. It looks like the opening 15 break is going to be to the downside. So there's your short. You could certainly trade toward that ledge break and maybe get at least 72, 70 out of it. Let's see if that trade works out. It hasn't broken it yet. I'm predicting it, but it looks like it's going to right there. So even down to SD1 gets you to 72. So that's a decent short setup right there. I'm not trading ES, but if you are, that's a very interesting idea to be short right there. But again, managing the risk is tricky. We're bouncing a lot. Let's see. This one should work right now, I think. There goes the ledge. Boom. So, boy, no, not quite. We're right there. We haven't taken it out yet. I spoke too soon. See, it's trying to get absorbed again. These guys, I think, are going to get run over. Let's watch this spot right here. I think those buyers there are going to get run over. But maybe not. See the liquidity forming up down here. I think we're going to trade to that spot, 72.70 area. There goes NQ pushing down. I'm watching the tick on my other monitor, and it's improved a little bit, but it's still negative. So this low should go. But again, managing risk, trading it to break. There it goes. Okay. Kaboom. And there it is. So there's our 15-minute break. And once again, that statistic is amazingly reliable. Now we're back in the range. But again, if you faded it up here at 78 or 77, you could have traded to 73. And that was a really nice trade. You could see the absorption came right back up when we got to that liquidity and we bounced back. So that's one of the reasons I'm focusing on NQ, because in the exact same setup, you just get so much more movement. Look, NQ traded down to 00. We were focused over here, so I missed it. And then it bounced all the way back up to 20. And so, that was my fade long there. I missed it because I was watching over here. But anyway, hope some of you caught that. Either one of those, the short down to that area or the long in NQ. All right, let's watch for a little while more. Now we're at the spot where I start thinking about what the A to B trade's going to look like, and flip a coin. This is still a very tricky situation. And now we've got a price rejector on the pullback. We cleaned up the UB that was there. Now we've got new UB. So, still has UB up there, still has UB at the overnight low. But again, we're seeing some decent absorption. It's now trading below it though. So there's the short continuing to work. All right, let's see if we can grab a long over here in NQ on the next push down, or maybe right here. You know what? Let's see. Push that down there. Let's see if I can catch a long over here. I don't think I'm going to get it because I'm trying to let it come down to me. I want to see these ledges break, and then I'll get filled here, and I can trade back into the NQ range pretty predictably. But it may not get there. NQ has good buying right here. So let's see what happens with this kind of 6th spot. Let's see if it can break down from there. If these guys can break their lows, I'll be in good shape. But this is a good example of letting NQ come to you. The trade here will be getting long into this tail up here. It might work. Could have bought it right there, but you don't have as much room to work with on the profit side. I want to buy the bottom of this range if I'm going to do that. Come on, let's get one good push down so we can get a long on. Just for fun, I'll scoot this up to the last spot that got bought just to be a little less conservative, and we'll scoot this one down a little bit. So we'll enter a little more faster and slower. We'll enter faster initially, and we'll scale in slower. Okay, here we go. Come on, can we take that ledge out? Let's break it, please. Internals are not getting worse, unfortunately. I'd like to see them turn down just a bit here so I can get a fill. News in 10 minutes. Yes, I am aware of that. Now it's going to be we have a couple things coming up, Michigan and whatnot. Yeah, I'll be out of the way by then probably, but if I've got a runner going, I'll leave it. Okay, got filled. Perfect. And there we go. Let's protect that. Look at that. Look at that runner, guys. Just by parking that order down there, I've got 14 points. Boom. All right. That is exactly what you're trying to do. Let it come to you at the bottom of the statistical range. And, that's what I mean when I say good trades work right away. And, trade inflection points. That was just a perfect example of it. Okay, now let's cancel the rest of the orders and we'll wait for the news to clear. But that was sweet. That was a one lot and it was $24 in each account. So that was a $125 trade right there with a micro. Oh, I love that. I love when this happens. It's just that's exactly how it should work when you trade NQ the style that I do. Michael and David and the rest of you that I've been talking to privately in different examples, pay attention to that one I just did. Go back and watch the recording. That is exactly how you play the ledge right there. If anybody has any questions about that, by all means, stick them in because we're going to kind of sit on our hands here for the next 7 minutes or so until we get the next numbers. That's, by the way I'll handle, news events like that. Pete, I see Pete and Sven and JVC news coming. If I can see a trade that I don't expect to be in for 7 minutes, I'll do it. And that was it. That was the long down there. But now, so I'm mindful of it. But every now and then what happens is, let's say I did that with a couple of micros or I was still protecting it and it was still working, we were protecting the profit. Sometimes then the number comes and you get a wicked move continuing in that direction. And in that case, I'll go ahead and leave it on because I've already protected the profit. So I've got nothing to lose. My stop will work, might have a little slippage, but I'll protect my trade. So, we typically have news at the top of the hour most mornings. And so, that's why breaking the morning up this way, to the opening 5 minutes, the 15-minute break, then, A period, then B period for the initial balance, it kind of keeps you aware of the top of the hour anyway, because that's the B to A rotation. And so it's a natural thing that you would be aware and every day. You don't have to think about it. By the way, look at this view here. This is such a perfect example of how that open 15 break works. And, every day, a couple of you have told me this, you've done it as well. If you look back over time, it works almost every day. This one was a long, this one was a short, this one was a long. And so I suggest you just keep an eye on that. Again, it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just, the market tends to break that and go with it. And if we do get an opening drive, where we've gap one way and just go that way all day, this setup, the open 15 break, will put you in that trade really advantageously in an opening drive. And, those don't happen that often. I don't remember the statistics from Dalton, but I want to say opening drives are maybe 10% of sessions, where it gaps one way and just keeps going. And so that's a really good tactic to learn how to figure out where to join that. So give it a try. All right. 5 more minutes. I see Lee is here. I know he's just kind of lurking, but if you have any statistic or structural wisdom to share with us, Lee, I'd be interested, because this continues to look, well, we've cleaned up the UB at the low, but not decisively at all. 6 by 0, 2 by 68. We still have UB up there. Again, as a reminder, there's UB down here at the overnight low as well. So that could make for an interesting break in that direction. But otherwise, wrong way around on the min-max delta on A period. Kind of still dancing around that giant delta there, which is, again, blue down here. You'd expect a red delta there. So that's just kind of an odd artifact, but, it could be another time frame trade, or could have been something to do with that's right on the Max Payne price. Look at that. Oh, that's so funny. JVC, check that out. That giant delta is right where Max Payne was. I want that. I'm certain that has something to do with it. Yeah.
Big shock. Big volume.
Big shock, exactly.
Spot. Wow.
Yeah. What a coincidence.
Exactly.
Anyway, I kind of kept talking there. I don't know, Lee, if you have any, feel free not to say anything. I know you're working on other stuff, but if you have anything you want to add, by all means, we'd love to hear it. So now we're holding above 20, which happens to be the VWAP right now in NQ. So, this is a really crappy long setup in NQ right now. The really good long was the one I got down at the other end of the range. And now, God, where are you wrong here? Well, 20 would still be a long. 12 would still be a long because the POC in that high volume. So, you're wrong below 5. So how are you going to, join that at 30? That's just too risky to try to play. But, there is a trade here, probably both ways. So far, we've seen a lot of bidirectional sweeps, where it'll sweep up and sweep down very suddenly. And that's not friendly unless you're in a trade that's benefiting. So remember what I've said about, keeping an eye on friendly sweeps. For those, we have a few guests. Real quickly, let me just toss up this document. This is how I make trading decisions. These are the elements I'm looking at. Time of the day, obviously, this is the open, and I've already explained I have the open 5, the 15, and the initial balance. Which way are we going? That's critical. That's the most important thing. And then, with how much energy? Are there sweeps? Are they friendly? Friendly sweeps are sweeps in the direction you're trading. Unfriendly sweeps are when they're both ways, and that's what we've got right now, so be careful. Liquidity, we talked about this already. We're trading into liquidity, and it's trading, so that's noteworthy. The range, that's one of the problems this morning, is there's a giant range. And so predicting the extremes of it is difficult. And then high volume and low volume nodes, we just did that on the last trade that I did. I was talking about this down here that, I'm looking to fade the lack of volume because it's exhausting down here. So that's why I was looking to get long there, because it trade back up into the volume, which is where all the action is. So that's how I do what I do. That document is in the pit for those of you that want it or haven't seen it. 2 more minutes. The other document that is relevant is the following one. While we're waiting, I'll bring this one up. So these are, oh, fuck you, Microsoft. I don't want your browser. Anyway, pardon my French. That's reserved for Microsoft, my former company. And I use a procedure for each thing. Execution is done this way. and context, figuring out what the general situation is done this way. And this is something I'm actually going to do a class on coming up. And I've been working with some people one-on-one on this particular thing. So I haven't really shared it widely, but it's pretty straightforward. And you can kind of just look at this in the recording. And again, I will post that when I get a little more detail and around the class offering that I'm thinking about for that. So previews of coming attractions. Yeah, Bing's actually a decent search engine too, Pete. It's not, my problem isn't with Microsoft products. My problem, having been an employee and understanding the company, is just, that they pull shit like that. I open a PDF, my default PDF are opened by Chrome. And they decide, on an update to put it back and ask me if I want to default back to, to Edge. And they've lost lawsuits over this, and, they've signed consent decrees over this. And it just bothers me, but if I was running a monopoly, I'd probably do it the same way. So what can you say? It's just the philosophy of the old timers at the company was, this is our space. We'll do it any way we want because Windows is ours. That there's still a few of those dinosaurs left at Microsoft, although most of them are gone. Most of that was Bomber, to be honest. But, from a business point of view, he was right. Milk the heck out of the space you control. Is it ethical? Is it, good for your users? No. Do you care? No. That's business. Okay, news time. We got a few of the numbers. We haven't gotten all of them. We're obviously in price discovery now. We're still on to the upside, though. Here's the news that's coming out, so you can kind of see as we get results. I don't really care what the numbers are, but you can see whether they've actually posted or not yet. So we've gotten the Michigan numbers, and they were negative, which is interesting. So the market is going up. That makes no sense, but the market never makes sense. So don't try to predict what a numbers event. Okay, Conference Board leading index, leading indicators month over month. Also, well, that came in about expected. And the auction isn't really relevant, but that could affect trading in the indexes as well, as we see what the current rates are getting pegged at. But this is the long at the moment. Again, that this is what I meant about the long I was in earlier. Sometimes just keeping a runner on, you can pick off another 40 points, But I will only do that if I can protect the trade I'm in. And as you saw, I tried to do that and I got filled. So that's okay. So here is our A period, B period transition. And what a shocker. This is A period again. We're right up there, but we haven't quite been able to take it out. Look at all those zeros at the stops at the other end of this rotation. This is B here since we opened. Looks like we're going to take out A pretty clearly here. So that should take out the high. Let's see if it's a weak break or not, or how it handles the UB up here. Because, look at the other end. There's no UB up there, but the overnight, is almost at 410. So, a short squeeze is not out of the question here if we can get going to the upside. But again, from my point of view, I want to be long, but I don't want to chase it up here. I had a good trade. I'm happy that I got it. But now we might be getting a spot to pull back. So again, the fade would have been really good as a short there, back up. But now it could be a spot to look long. Gosh, the bottom of the value or top of value is way down here, though. So I don't like that trade right now either. Predictable little break there in ES, though. That was pretty nice. Let's see what that kind of top that left. It left UB up there. So we still haven't taken out the top of A period. So you got to think this still wants to go up, but boy, that got rejected pretty hard there. It traded that liquidity, right at 88.5 and 87.75. A bunch more liquidity stepped up right above there, and then we traded right back into the range, right back to the POC. Tricky environment again. Could I do a specific session on range scalping? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about with this idea that I mentioned earlier. How to execute against that. What the rules of the execution procedure should be, and that's that second document that I put up, Pete. I'm actually working on that. By the way, as a reminder, this Saturday we have a class on, it was a request by Bob, and it was a really good idea. A lot of people are finding that the old, conventional wisdom, which usually isn't wisdom in the market, but that the conventional wisdom, you should trade one lots until you can do it profitably. There's some arguments with that. Swarming is one of them. Sometimes trading a couple of micros is much easier to do than just trading a one lot. And Bob brought that up. And so we have a little risk management roundtable this Saturday about that. And it continues to be a long. But again, it's right at the extreme of the range, and it's at the extreme of the VWAP now. So if anything, I want to be short here, but it's still going up. So let's see if we can get up to 20 in NQ. That might be a place to fade this. So, because again, we're running out of gas up here. That's what you want to look for if you're going to fade NQ ledges. Did we take out the ledge in ES? It looks like we did. Hang on a second. We did. Okay, so we took out the UB. Not a price rejector, but that's relatively clean from my world. So I think a short up here could get interesting if I can get a good entry, which 10 wasn't, but 20 would be. So again, just pushing the edge of the range is what I'd be looking to fade there, particularly since the volume all ran out. See how this thin tail, it ran out of energy up there, which makes for perfect fades back into the range. But right here, it's a little bit erratic, so it's possibly a long. But the problem with a long here is we're just way at the extreme. And so unless it really keeps going this way, and I don't have any confidence it's going to do that. The internals don't support that. They're getting out of the dungeon, but the tick is not strong. So this doesn't have a good argument for a long, except at the other end of the range, which now we're we need to go a little further down. Top of the value area for ES. So again, if they're going to be responsive buying, you'd see it right here using the market profile definition for responsive buying, pull back to the value area from the high. But that assumes we're trending up, which I think is a weak assumption right now. This feels more like a bounce than it does trending up, particularly since we're not well correlated, and RTY is now down 1%, even though it's at the top of its range. So let's keep an eye on YM and RTY. If they can break out, that could get a long going, but otherwise I think I like fading NQ. At the top, and again, at the bottom, I like it long, but that's just too far away right now. This range is just way too big. So we need to let it get to a more advantageous point, a more asymmetric point. Up. Yeah, this is a whole lot of nothing right here. I'm going to reset this one. Let's see that right there. Where else is there volume? Right there, there, and there. Okay, let's reset that one. We'll keep the volume on over here, and let's just watch the movement in NQ. There could be a long down here, right here at the low 90s. That's typically a spot you can buy. But again, it's so far up in the range. I'm just really hesitant to get long there. It's just, where am I wrong? Well, 70. That's the problem. Actually, probably not wrong till 20. So just too big a range to try to join that. Anybody has any questions? I know we have some guests. By all means, stick them in the chat. I will make every attempt to answer them. This is interesting. I'm looking at the heat map one more time of the equities, and the equities are starting to split up. We're getting a rainbow tape where we've got a couple of things really strong, but we've got a lot of stuff really weak. Look at financials just getting crushed again. So I don't know if tech's going to be able to hold this up. So that's going to be worth watching as NQ gets slower down. We could see selling come into tech, but in other words, the other ones could pull tech down. It kind of feels like that might be what's going to happen here. So I'm going to reset all the DOMs. And if it doesn't get any buying right in here in the low 70s, then I think we're probably going to push further down in NQ. So I don't like it short or long here, but I'm starting to look for a trade again because I'm starting to see a setup I like. So If the internals continue to deteriorate, I like this short a little higher up, like a short right here on this volume. That's an interesting idea. Because the other, unless we just work the range, in which case, it'll get clearer what the range is as we get further into the session. Actually, ES has a pretty nicely defined range. Nice tail up there, nice tail down here. Needs to fill in a little volume, but that's a reasonably symmetrical volume profile, reasonably, symmetrical bell-shaped curve. So, but the structure tells us that might not be true. That again, we're reasonably clean up here. We took out that UB, but we still have lots of other things. The stops we ran down there, UB down. Oh, wait a minute. The bottom cleaned up the UB too. I just noticed that. So the only UB we have left is down at the overnight. And obviously we got to be heading that way and closer to that for that to be of interest. Okay, see, NQ is having trouble holding on here. So this could be what I was talking about. This could be the beginning of a good short. This lack of correlation, we can see why it is. The only reason NASDAQ is not down is a couple of big techs. And this is exactly what happened yesterday, and that pulled the market up yesterday. But will that happen today, or will it pull it down? It feels like it's going to pull it down, and we're going to go the other way. But that's why I keep an eye on the internals, just to get a sense of what the equities are doing. They're getting worse. So the advanced decline's now heading down. The tick remains very negative. So you don't want to be looking for longs here. You probably want to be looking for good places to get short. Although, with the understanding that NQ is not correlated to those right now, it still looks weak. So, and there it goes. As I'm describing that, it just dropped 10 points. So the trick again is getting a decent entry if you're going to scalp this, and a decent entry is higher up, or on the way down with a lot more momentum. See, these sweeps are both ways. This is what I was talking about in that document. If it's sweeping against you and you're trying to get short, you got to use one of those sweeps to get in. It's got to sweep up here somewhere, and then you can fade it. Then you could play the top of the range again, and that's what I was trying to do a minute ago, a little further up, like here, or up here, on these little bulges of volume. So that's the way to play this. Again, over and over again, I say this, but it's so important. If you're going to trade NQ, you got to let it come to you. Just joining NQ randomly is just dangerous. Again, that short would have worked really well there, but we're getting these 10-point bounces that could make it really hard to stay in or get in at the right spot. There's another one. So you got to let it come to you and fade it, at a good spot. Otherwise, you can have the right idea and just, the execution can make it so you can't make any money. Always respect the momentum and respect the range, particularly if you're going to trade NQ. Okay, now maybe we can fade up here. There's a little bit of absorption. That's a decent spot. Do we want to take it? Bottom of the range here. No, that could be a trap shorting there, but that's an interesting spot right there at 66, and now it's trading away. Okay, well, I almost hit the short button there. I was explaining it to you and watching that and going, yeah, that's not so bad. And of course, it dropped. So practice your read like what I'm doing. Talk to yourself, talk to your cat, explain what you're seeing, and that's how you can get really good at jumping into those. And grabbing some ticks. That turned out to be a really, really good one. I was seeing that absorption there, seeing the battle, and you could just see it was not going to go up. That was really, really clear in the traded volume. It got absorbed up there at 65, and that was that. So let's see if we get another one like that to play before the bottom of the hour and the end of the session. I'd love to get a trade like that where I could just show you that situation and then I do them all the time, but I'd love to get another one, is what I should say, right on a good inflection point that is an inflection point for no other reason than we're seeing the absorption there. So this could be another one right here. Yeah, except this is trading on the bid. This we could go up from here unless this pushes down really hard. This looks like some buying. This could be a place to play long. Watch 50. Boy, it's definitely an inflection point, heavy volume, and now we're going up. So look at that. Again, if you just watch the volume, this is the thing. I have a little contest going with a video game guy about, MAE, and this is what he looks for, and it's so accurate. He trades it in NQ. Obviously, I'm in MNQ. But if you just watch for the behavior like that, where you see absorption in the traded volume, that's typically good for 5 to 10 points the other way real fast, like it just did here. And now we're seeing absorption on the other side, into the ask. And you can see it there at 61. So, for the moment, that's the top of the range, even though statistically we're still in the middle. So that's a really good tip, Pete, for how to play ranges, is to just look at the interaction between the statistical range over here and just where the traded volume is printing. And that'll, keep you on the right side of it. And that's, again, why I'm using filtered blocks of NQ, because a lot of times NQ is really where the clues are, but I'm executing on the dome of MNQ, so I might not see that volume here. And that's often the case, where the volume will be on the NQ side, not the MNQ side. So you can do your own kind of arbitrage. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm watching that to look for those places like 60 just got sold. Look at that right there, If it trades on the bid and we go below it, it's getting sold. If it trades on the bid and we hold and go up, it's getting bought. It's that simple. It just did that right here. And again, I'm talking about the very, very short term. I'm not talking about trends or anything else. Look at all of this trading in the bid, and it just stopped going down. And so that's a perfect place to scalp, and boom, you get 10 points going the other way to the last place that it did it on the other side. Get used to just watching this. That's the key to trading NQ or MNQ well. Okay, we have 16 more minutes. It's not hard, Pete. It just takes experience. That's all it is. It's just about experience. What is the theme of the Dino session today? That's a really good question. I have 2 or 3 different ones, and I haven't decided yet. So the Dino session will be a surprise. Remember, for the Dino session, we always do 2 different things. One's just a recap of the week, and this will be a fun week to recap because it's been a crazy week. Even though, we basically have not moved. We're still in the same exact range of the week. We've just been moving around like crazy within that range, which is why it's so scalpable. So we'll talk about that. And then the second half of the Dino, we do a trading psychology topic. And I haven't figured out which one I'm going to do yet. I had a few ideas this week, and then I had another idea I wanted to do. And so show up and you will find out. If I make a decision beforehand, I'll post it as well. But I have those 3 candidates, and I might just flip a coin or something to decide. I think one of the keys to learning to read the volume in NQ, Pete, is to pay attention to the structure of ES. Having the 2 domes right next to each other like this, I get a real sense for the structure of the market. Look at this. This is a really orderly market. We've got exhaustion here. We've got not as good down here, but it ran out of gas. We're right in the middle of the range. We're right in the VWAP. We're filling in this volume. There the POC's right here. This is a pretty orderly market. So, if I can see behavior there and trade it over here, I just get so much more movement over here of the same behavior. So, for example, when you see ES trading into the bid and getting absorbed, look for a spot that it's likely to do that over here. And that's where you play. And then the traded volume should be supportive of that. So right now, this is the bottom of the value area. I don't know if it's getting sold or bought. It's just kind of sitting there. So in that case, I look at the range. And at this point, I'm looking for longs because we're at the bottom of the range. And it's literally that simple. Unless that range gets run over, right now, that's a good tactic. And then once then you can just zoom in on the traded volume on the dome you're trading. And the difference between the 2 tapes over here, the one that's showing everything, is just how I get a sense of momentum. When we're really trading aggressively in NQ, that gets going really fast. And you can also see by the color which side. Like right now, it's slamming into the bid down here. So I look over here for the blocks to absorb it, and they are trying right here at 58. So let's see what happens. See, this attempts at absorption. We're trading right on the bid or right below it, and it got plowed through. Okay, this could set up a good long here, but right now you can see how it's getting sold really aggressively. All the blocks are pounding down. And now, all right, there's some absorption right there at 40. So again, that's the VWAP. That could be an interesting long right there. Let's watch that. And, often those become 10-point opportunities instantly, or it continues down and it's trying to decide right now what it's going to do. Watch the blocks. Blocks are trading on the bid, and the price is trying to hold, but it's hanging on by its fingernails. So this one's still not clear. I like it long better than short here. So, like right in there would be an interesting spot to nibble long, say 39.5, and, trade back up here to say 48, 47, where this broke down. That's where all that selling started. And, you've got a decent 10-point trade unless the bottom gets blown out, which it's still not doing. It's still trying to hold that 40. Be mindful of this high volume node, which could be supportive. But right now, there's no good trade, long or short. It's sweeping down too much. This could set up a really nice long down here at 20. Look at the bottoms of these all going here, guys. So we're taking out the lows. So let's see if the strength in NQ is going to hold up. I'm going to see if I can get a fill right there. So if I get run over, no big deal. Let's get a target up. And again, you're just looking for the snapbacks into the range. So this will be an example of it right here. It's trying. Let's watch it. And well, there it is. Okay. So that's just a real high odds trade to fade the edge of the range like that. Clearly it's getting run over, but 20 is a price it likes to hold. So, this isn't one I would do aggressively because it's not holding it aggressively, but catching a scalp there is easy. And I like this obviously much better down here because these are all at their lows, but NQ continues to have better strength. And again, one more time, I'm watching this out of the corner of my eye and it's really weak. So that's making me being very careful being long like I am, scalping long, but as long as it's holding those price levels, it's real. And again, what's really going on under the covers with the equities, the only thing holding this whole market up right now is some tech. So, Google, if Google turns, Microsoft turns, NVIDIA, this thing could drop really hard. But at the moment, that's holding us up. So that's a good summary of the context. Yes, you do need to be quick if you're going to trade NQ, but that's the beauty of it in my mind, David, is that, you're right or wrong right away. You don't have to sit there waiting for a trade to work. I hate that. I hate waiting for trades to work. I want it to work right away. Good trades work right away. Bad trades, if you get upside down really fast, it's a good chance to just get out of the way. Or, if you have a good swarm set up, look to swarm it. But this is a decent long here. We're holding the bottom of a range that we've managed to hold for a while here in NQ. I'll blow it up so you can see it. It can go lower where I like it better, but this isn't getting sold so aggressively that it looks like the bottom's going to drop out compared to what's happening over here in ES where it is getting sold aggressively, but the bottom is holding. That same story. So, I'm just not in a rush to join that. I'd much rather just scalp a fade of it really quickly like you saw me do. So structurally, I don't think anything has really changed since I looked the last time. Let's see. Oh, yes, it has. We ran a little bit of stops on the way down here, some zero prints, and now, aggression through that range. We're below that big delta now, which makes a lot more sense if that is meaningful. But it might not be meaningful, as I said earlier. And we're right on negative delta. So, it's hard to interpret that right now, and we're right between them on the pullback. So again, still have that artifact UB from the overnight that could be in play in ES. But look at this, we traded right to the liquidity traded, and we're holding right there at the the mid 60s, high 60s. So doesn't feel like the bottom is falling out, but it's not a particularly interesting level anyway, even if it does fall out. So all right, I'm going to go about 8 more minutes. So I'm going to start asking for burning desires. If anybody has additional questions they would like, put them in the chat. I will talk to them. Otherwise, the Dino session is I always get this wrong. It's at noon Eastern, right? JVC, is that?
That is correct.
Okay, so join us for that. That's another public session. And then today, don't forget, on top of that, I also have the closing session. So we have Dino's, which is at 12 Eastern, and then I'm doing the Gaming the Close, which we have scheduled for the last hour every day, but sometimes we open that early if there's a lot of activity, which there very well could be today. So watch for an announcement for that session to be opened early, and that's a member-only session. That's not free. So join us for that. Nice turnout today. Thanks for coming, everybody. This has been a fun one. we're pushing down again. Look at the other three indexes are all making lows. So, you could argue short, particularly with ES, because it's got that UB below us. But again, you've heard me say this over and over again. I'd be a buyer down here in NQ, if nothing else, just for a snapback into the range. So let's see if we can get a push down here. Get one more on before the end of the session. And I would probably, let's see, 0, 0. Let's take the break of 0, 0, and then maybe half the break. And then we'll push this down in case the ledge goes. Okay. And I am watching Microsoft and Google get weaker. And so, NQ's low could go here. There it comes. Okay, heavy selling. See if I can catch a fill down here and scalp myself along. It just missed me again by 2 ticks. There we go. Okay, I've got 2 now. Trade back to 0 on the first one. We'll protect it. See if we can catch a runner. We didn't. We just took profits. So now I'll set up for the trading. Look at all the absorption right there, which just happened to be where my order was, and that's why I got filled. That's how you have to trade the ledge break of NQ if you're fading it like I do. You just saw a perfect example of that. So that will be a fun one to wrap up. Somebody asked me doing this stuff, I post the P&Ls, but today it's at $400. We've been doing, 1 and 2 lot scalps and copying to 5 accounts. So, with virtually no risk. I'm not taking any significant risk. I'm also taking profits right at the peak of the P&L, which if you're doing, trailing drawdowns is kind of important because that way you don't get your trailing drawdown coming back and biting you. All right, let's see if this area gets bought again. You can see how heavily it got bought the last push down. And that'll take us just into the bottom of the session. So perfect. Look at the wick on that long that I just did. That it's just really clear that was going to be a little quick high volume reversal, and now we're 17, almost 20 points off of that. My rule is take profits fast and don't let profits go back to being losers. So that's why you see me protect it so quickly. But, you've also seen me do that and get some runners, and those runners can be insane. We had one Wednesday in the Wednesday class. We had a 1 lot micro runner that went for like 50 points, and it was almost $100. It was crazy. And just doing that exact same thing, just, once it is in profit, protected, and if it keeps going, great. If it doesn't, you get stopped out with your profit and you don't end up giving it back. So that's why I do that. I don't use brackets, however, though, and there's 2 reasons. Number one, I don't like clouding up my dome with lots of orders of a bracket. And the other reason is trade copiers don't like brackets. The brackets often get confused and left over, and the OCO doesn't work very well. Okay, here's another push down. Let's fade that. And whoa, this is a really aggressive one. Let's see if we can get a little more energy into this. And this will be a good one to wrap up on. Tech is getting weaker, so this could be the big drop now. We took out the lows across the board, but I'm willing to bet I can pick off some ticks going the other way. Let's see. Just put these at good target spots. I'm just looking where the volume was, and that's where I'm putting the orders. Let's see if we can catch another push down here. I'd be willing to swarm this up to maybe 5 or 7 micros here. Let's get a fill down there. Oh, it traded, and it didn't fill me. There we go. Okay. I could end up massively offsides here, guys, but I don't think I will. This volatility it'll either continue and the bottom will fall out, or we'll get a nice snapback. And I think the snapback is likely, but you'll see. Let's put these guys right there. The tick is very, very negative right now. It's minus 1100. So this is kind of a massive amount of sudden selling. Okay, we're about to get out of the first 2 with our profits here. And there it is. Oh, wow. It just swept up and got my other target, which was 10 points higher up. Wow. Okay, so that's great. I got filled very profitably. That was a $26 trade with a 3 lot, again, multiplied by 5. So, call it $125 less commissions. So, call it 100. I'll take those all day. This is pretty aggressive selling, though. I wouldn't do that too much. You can see I've still got an order down here. Let's see if that one gets filled on a sweep breaking down the ledge. That would be ideal. You can see we're trading into the ask right now, which means we're probably going to go lower. So unless we can get above that, which it's trying to do, let's reset that dome. Watch what's going on over here. It's trying to hold big fat whole number. Look at all that liquidity right there at 50 in ES. I bet there's some MBOs there. You see 235 and 334 right on 50 and 50 quarter. So, a push down there would fill this order and I'd get a nice snapback long like I just did a minute ago. But it looks like it's already doing it. It's, again, bottom of the range. The range is nicely horizontal. So this is a very good statistical range to fade. Not true in ES. ES is breaking down. So, it's a different animal. And now we're finally correlated okay with RTY leading down and YM continuing to lead down. But there are good long scalps to be had in NQ. All right, 1 minute left. Let's keep an eye on the structure as we go into C period. We have UB at the low again. So, it looks like it wants to go lower. And let's see, that's wait a minute. No, that's the session UB. So we took out the overnight UB and then we left more UB. So, but we did it with some zero prints. And don't forget, there's single prints everywhere also. Look at the TPO view. There's single prints above us. There's single prints below us, and it's a real thin down here. So anything could happen. Don't get too married to your opinion. Trade what's happening. Respect the momentum. Those are my messages for everybody today. The momentum is king. Yes, the artifacts are relevant, but the momentum is what's going to determine the interaction with the artifacts. So, really focus on the momentum and you won't get badly beaten up and you could catch some really wicked runners. That's my advice. Anyway, so any other questions, comments? We're right now going into C periods. So this is pretty much the end of the opening session. We left some mess down there again. Some stops got triggered and now we're back up. So still left UB. Take your pick. Good trading environment. Lots of opportunities. Okay, so Burning Desires, last call. Are there any final questions, comments, anything you'd like to add, JVC?
I don't have anything else. I guess Dino at 90 minutes.
Yes, Dino in 90 minutes, and I'll have to decide what the topic's going to be. So stay tuned.
We will discover the surprise topic.
Surprise topic. Yes. Okay. There's my structure reminder. All right. Have a good one, everybody. We will see you for Dino, or if not for Dino, for the close, which today should be really interesting. The close should be very, very interesting. There's almost no way it can't be because this range is just ginormous. And, again, put that in the context of what we've been doing, range-wise all week. And we're kind of at one end of the extremes. So, yeah, the close could be very interesting. So I'll see you at one of those two events, if not both of them, everybody. Have a good one.